Hello, welcome to the Beasley Equine Podcast. I'm your host and equine veterinarian, Dr. Travis Beasley.
Veterinary surgeon or start to come quick. Draw the syringe and give it a flick. Bring your little black bag with the medicines in. Bring the trank and the crank and the penicillin.
All right, it is springtime, and springtime in Southern Illinois means allergies and storms for me. It hit me last week. I was pretty good today, but I have been sneezing for the past 20 minutes, and I think I might have to double up on my Zyrtec. And we also see a lot of allergic horses this time of year, and believe it or not, we use Zyrtec in those too. It doesn't do much by itself, but I'll usually use it with a steroid like Pred, and it does pretty good. We get the generic. It's super cheap. That's what I take, but I take one a day. Your average 1,000-pound horse will prescribe anywhere from 15 to 20 twice a day. And that seems to do pretty good with them. Sometimes we can lower the dose of the steroids with that. But if I sound a little nasally, that's because I am. And spring in Southern Illinois is also breeding season. We've been seeing quite a few people getting ready for AI. And me and a partner by the name of Steve Summershine, our farrier, got together, and we have a thoroughbred mare that we have bred with the hopes of a barrel horse prospect. So we've been dealing with that the past couple of weeks. We weren't quite ready, and you would think I would know this, but I didn't know to breed a thoroughbred to a quarter horse, you got to have what's called a T number, which is, I'm assuming the T stands for thoroughbred. But we got all that lined out, and they flew in some semen last Monday, actually, and she was bred a week ago today. So hopefully the later part of next week we'll find out. She's up north. Another veterinarian who actually trained me in school is breeding her. So hopefully, knock on wood, we'll have a baby on the ground by this time next year. A really fast one that will be for sale. Probably the best prospect you can buy. Man, the barrel horse breeding is crazy right now. A couple of the studs we looked at, we couldn't even get in because they were already booked up. I wanted to breed her to Trace Sace because when I graduated vet school in 2013, I worked at a place called JEH in Whitesboro, Texas. It doesn't exist anymore, but we actually stood Trace Sace. So he would be in Brazil. For those of you who don't know, Trace Sace is a quarter horse. He's awesome, and he has some really good babies and offspring on the ground that are great. But some Brazilian guys owned him. The Trace Sace Syndicate owned him at the time, and Brazil's breeding season is opposite of ours. So in the wintertime here, he was in Brazil breeding mares, mainly artificial insemination. They were collecting them, and then he'd fly into Florida and then travel to Texas, and then in the United States breeding season, January to July or so, we would collect them and ship semen, free semen, everything like that. But he was a little bit out of our budget, so we picked somebody else, and once we get everything straightened out, I'll tell you all about that breeding. Which that year in Texas, I learned a lot doing that. We stood several studs there, and we didn't do too much with them, though. We had their own breeding manager that did everything. But when he was out of town, we got to help with some of that stuff. So I spent a lot of time in Texas from 2012 till 14. I did an externship at the 4.6s, which is where I got this rattlesnake rattle. For those of you watching, I'll try to see if... Yeah, you can hear it. So I was at the 4.6s, just there for the horses because I was tracking equine. But one day the horse vet got to go to a farm and preg check a bunch of cows, so I got to go with them, and we met at a place, and there was about 10 or 12 cowboys, day workers they called them, and they all settled up and rode out, and about an hour later we drove to the middle of this barren field where there was a catch pen, and here they come over the hill. So this is like before the 4.6s was famous. It was some real cowboy stuff. So I'm all excited. I'm getting ready to get out of the truck. And he's like, just wait a minute, because inside the pen was grass. Everywhere else, there was hardly any grass. I don't know how many thousand acres these cows were on, but he said, why don't you let the cows get in there, and then that way, if there's any rattlesnakes, they'll stir them up or stomp on them. So I was like, oh, didn't even think about rattlesnakes. So we're about 10 cows in, and these are like super far along. So you stick your hand in there. Okay, it's bred. Like even a vet student like me could tell. So about the 10th or 12th one, he let me do, and I heard something that sounded a lot like this right here. I was like, I think I heard a rattlesnake. Nobody else heard it. He's like, we should be good. The cows already ran through. Next cow, somebody else heard it, and they just started yelling, rattlesnake, rattlesnake. And this guy with, I mean, a real cowboy. He had the boots on. He took the hot shot and was walking in the tall grass and stirred this rattlesnake out, and it was slithering away from him. He just took his boots, stomped on him behind the head, then took his other boot and smashed his head in the ground, pulled out his pocket knife, cut the rattles off, and said, do you want these? I was like, sure. And I still got them. Oh, John, so John's over here off camera, but me and John went to St. Louis last year, or 2 years ago?
2 years ago, I think?
2 years ago, to see Core Blunt at the Golden Record in St. Louis. And a guy named Branson Anderson opened up. We had no idea who he was. We looked him up ahead of time. We're like, we got to get there early to hear this cat. He was from Utah, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot the name of the song, but he had a song that mentioned something about a rattlesnake. And he made that sound with his mouth in the middle of the song. And it was a highlight, at least one of the highlights of the night. So also in Texas, man, it was crazy there because we had all these recip mares. We got to ultrasound and hundreds of them. Back then, recips were worth about $300. Now they're like $3,000. So they're treated a little bit different, and it's kind of been fun to see how that goes. And I know some people that have been bitten by rattlesnakes. Luckily, I didn't, but I did get stung by a scorpion in my apartment in Whitesboro, Texas, and I still have the scorpion somewhere too because I put a Pyrex jar over them and then scooped them up and froze them. And we had to call the poison control. They're like, what county? What does it look like? And they're like, all right, you're good. Just take some ibuprofen. But picture getting stung by a wasp and then multiply that by probably 250. And that's what that thing felt like. But evidently there was some there that would like make your tongue go numb and everything. Because a lady vet that worked there, one came out of the drain in the shower and stung her foot, and I guess evidently her tongue went numb. But I don't know how many different types of scorpions there are, but I don't care to ever see another one.
I think I found that Branson Anderson song too. I think it's the When I Roll. He the Western AF. Have you ever seen their YouTube channel?
Yes, it's awesome.
So he's got a full concert series on there, and it's just awesome. And I remember probably a year or so before we went to St. Louis, so this is probably 3 years ago or so, I found him when I was doing booking for a completely different venue, and we did all just original music and stuff like that there. I found him and just liked him and kind of forgot about him until we went to that Corp show. We went there and then got a new album from him there. But yeah, that song is the When I Roll.
He was cool.
Yeah, he was good. That whole show was good.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about it since the beginning, how awesome it'd be to get Corb here on this show, especially considering our intro songs.
Yeah.
Corb song.
Yeah. So the song you heard at the beginning, or the talk, or Horse Doctor Come Quick is the name of that song. That's a Corb Lund song. He's one of my heroes. So if you're not familiar with Corb Lund, look him up. He's got a lot of great cowboy songs. His dad was a large animal vet, just like my dad. So there's a little connection there. And Branson Anderson, too. Look that guy up. And what was funny was, I guess he's part mechanic, too.
Mm-hmm.
Because that week, he changed all the plugs and wires in Corb's touring van. Corb's from Canada, so, I mean, these guys burn up the road. And Branson took care of him today. That's cool. You can find that, John. John's just pretty handy. My wife is out of town. We went up to Champaign this weekend because my kids are on spring break, so they're spending some time with their grandma. That's where my wife and family's from in central Illinois. And speaking of storms, I drove through a bunch of hail on the way home, like 3 rounds of it.
Yeah, and I think we almost need to take a second and talk about how horses won't stand in a shelter that you spend thousands of dollars building for them in the hail. And
Yeah.
it's the most annoying thing in the world.
Yeah, so I got 3 horses at my house. I got a mini and 2 old mares. And last night when I got home, like I beat the storm because of the way it was coming. And then I just got some stuff ready, and I'm looking at the radar and looking at all this stuff. I put their hay, I fed them in the shelter, and they're out there, which I bought a portable lean-to. I had a good friend of mine come over, and we leveled it. He basically cut it down, leveled it, and packed in rock about like concrete. And John came over and helped me spread lime. We put rubber mats down. And what do they do during the storm? They just stand out there with their butt facing it. And I'm standing there watching them. Like, I'm glad I spent all these thousands of dollars for you guys to have a shelter that you're not using. But they did this winter because we had a rough winter. So,
Yeah. The winter time, mine will use it a little bit. I mean, my old paint horse won't. He refuses to stay inside of a fence. He's almost 30 years old and can just do what he wants at this point anyway. But
he's earned it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the one you roped on a lot when you were traveling all over, right?
Oh, yeah. Paint horse is the only reason why I can rope, I think, is because of that horse.
You have an interesting history with that. You were a hauler. What do you call that?
Roadman?
Roadman?
It's usually what most people kind of refer to it as. And I mean, basically, you're just low man on the totem pole for somebody out there on the road full time. So you drive their truck, you take care of their horses, you make sure everything's ready for them to go rope and do what they need to do to go make money and be the best at what they can. And you just kind of take care of everything in the back end.
And who did you work for?
Quite a few people. Travis Graves, Clay Tryan a little bit. And I was right there in the Stephenville area, and so I got to haul horses for Chad Masters and all sorts of people. I was lucky enough to get to do some work with.
Oh, speaking of music, did you rope with Casey Donahue? With Paint Horse, right?
Yep, with old Paint.
That's awesome.
At the time, he had a real pretty big bay horse, which I mean, I'm sure he can get whatever horse he wants to, but he was definitely mounted well, that's for sure.
He's got a bigger budget than we do.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, John, he's our go-to guy. He's the one that set all this up with our help from our friend John Heron. Like I said, my wife's out of town. I have a beagle who loves to hunt. We live on 30 acres, and a lot of it's wooded. So I let him out early this morning, and when I went to go to work, I'd call his name, and all I heard was a bark. So John went home later this morning and let him in so he could eat breakfast, give him some loving and stuff like that. So we did a lot of dentals today, didn't we?
Yeah, I think there was at least 6 today.
Yeah,
and 6. A surprise extraction and
we
kind of throw on dental at the end.
Yeah, we had the first appointment. Both horses were in their mid to late 20s, and there's not much to do in there. You kind of do the best you can, but both of them had some super loose teeth. We took, I think, 2 out of one horse and 1 out of the other. Then we had another 24-year-old horse we took a tooth out of. Oh, then the last one, a 2-year-old that had wolf teeth, which isn't uncommon, and I block them just like you would get for an extraction. That way they can't feel anything. And we were taking this little bitty one out. We pulled it out, and most wolf teeth are just a straight tooth. They're not like a molar with all the different roots, but it was actually split and had 2 roots going up, and I've never seen that. I've seen some crazy stuff. I've seen wolf teeth in the bottom when they're usually up top, but I don't think anybody was excited as me. But that was pretty fun.
Yeah, you got pretty excited about that. I
think
Autumn got a kick about how excited you got out of that.
I'm still excited about it. I'm going to text all my vet friends after this. Like, have you ever seen this? Because I haven't. I don't know how. I'm sure people have pulled more teeth than me. But did you look at the Suburban windshield today? I drove my work truck to Champaign because that's kind of all I have right now. And the hail I drove through, I was just waiting on the windshield to break. The semi got blown over into the median. I'm glad my wife and kids weren't in there because I was a little nervous myself. But I'm pretty sure the windshield's chipped in several spots. Like,
drive it till it's broke. You good?
Yeah, I'm not going to worry about it. I bought a transit van last year, brand new, only new vehicle I ever bought, and I had it for 10 months. And this kid turned in front of me at the intersection. We both had green lights, and he evidently didn't know the rules of the road. And he turned right in front of me, and van got totaled. So I had just sold the Suburban, and I bought it back, and now the windshield's all chipped. But I am not going to bug my insurance anymore because we've had enough of that. But Champaign, that's where I went to vet school, and it's changing like crazy. Every time I go there, there's different stuff. Luckily, there's still Riggs, which I learned a little bit more about. Riggs, there's a brewery there named Riggs. That's these fellows' last name. I think a couple of them were in the military maybe, but they brew some of the best beer you'll ever taste. If you like beer, look up Riggs Brewery if you're ever in Central Illinois, but they also sell it in Harrisburg. It was good. I also got that picture of the Highland Steer at Hobby Lobby. So where we live, there's not many shopping options. We have Walmart and Mexican restaurants and the random food trucks, but we took the kids to Hobby Lobby to get some arts and crafts, and I haven't been in there in forever, but I've got a really cool picture of a Highland Steer in like a tux. It looks like an old Western photo it's a plastic frame, but it looks like the old gaudy frames. You know what I mean?
Next week's episode can be behind you back there. And we'll
Yeah.
just keep sneaking it in every now and then.
You think it'll glare or not?
I don't know. That one's not.
Oh, so that picture back there is...
For everybody listening.
Yeah, everybody listening, there's a picture hanging behind me. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. But it's a roping dummy on a sawhorse with 2 Labrador puppies, which you hardly ever see anything Western with lab puppies. And my dad, who's also a veterinarian, he also duck hunted. He was obsessed with it back when we used to have a lot of ducks here, probably in the 80s, maybe early 90s. I think that I don't know much about birds at all. They scare me to death. But I guess the migratory routes, and it may not be getting cold enough for him, we don't see many ducks. But anyways, he was a huge duck hunter, and he always, I vaguely remember going with him a few times. But when he came to Whitesboro to visit one time when I was doing my internship there, he found that picture in a pawn shop and bought it, and I love it.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anything roping-wise with lab pups.
No.
It's awesome.
And then a friend of mine named Jarrett Clem, who I played in a band with, he came to visit in Texas. We actually played. I was the singer and rhythm player. Jarrett played bass, and then a fellow named Chet, or the Chet as we called him, he played lead guitar. They came down and played the clinic open house I was working at, and he saw that picture, and he tried to buy it because he had labs at the time. So on the back of it, there's a Post-it note that says, basically, if I die, he gets it. And I think there's a John Wayne picture somewhere I found this weekend in my building that's the same thing. Just pawn shop stupid stuff, but he wants it for some reason. But we played like every weekend up there, all through vet school, undergrad and vet school. We didn't have any songs as cool as Branson Anderson with a rattlesnake noise.
Yeah, I don't know how we did that.
I don't either. We're going to St. Louis this weekend, John.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We might get rained out of the Savannah Bananas game, but thankfully St. Louis has a lot of good music spots, so I'm sure we'll find something to do.
Yeah, I want to go to the Broadway Oyster Bar.
I've never been. I'm sure they have other stuff besides oysters.
They do. It's Cajun, and they also have a lot of Cajun music. So a lot of the locals that are playing Friday or Saturday night will do like an afternoon show there.
There's Jeremy Todd, he played at the El Dorado Town and Country Days. He goes up there. He plays there once a month, too, at the Broadway Oyster Bar.
Oh, it's cool because it's kind of outside, but they can put the plastic curtains down.
Yeah. And then, that whole ballpark village up there, too. There's tons of stuff to do. And then even going over there to where the aquarium's at and all of that kind of stuff.
Oh, Union Station.
Yeah, Union Station there.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then we were talking about all the blues through there. There's tons of traveling blues artists and tons of blues just right there in St. Louis. So that's always a good time to go to, too.
Yeah, we won't run out of things to do.
No.
I'm not quite sure where we're staying. What's the name of the...
Not sure. It's a condo by Busch Stadium.
Ah, good.
So-
St. Louis.
Uh-huh.
There's lots of neighborhoods that have different, like Forest Park and the Grove. I think it's in the Grove.
It is in the Grove. Now that you say that.
Yeah,
It is in the Grove.
I think that's it. Where'd Lenny go?
He's over here laying by the door now.
Yeah, Lenny is John's dog, and he usually lays in that bed over there. For those of you watching, he sadly lost his siblings this past year, so he comes to work every day and hangs out with us.
He thoroughly enjoys it.
He
loves
sure
coming
does.
Every day.
What else do we need to talk about, John? This is kind of off the cuff today. I was gone this weekend, and we've been super busy at work, so I didn't really prepare much.
I think an upcoming episode that I'm looking forward to that you've been working hard on for a while now, and I think a lot of people have in their mind, but nobody really ever talks about, that I'm looking forward to hearing a veterinarian's perception of, and you talking about it, is the veterinary suicide rate.
Oh, yeah.
The mental health toll that veterinarians have on them, that clients put on them,
Right.
especially smaller clinics where you're the only veterinarian here right now. And so there isn't a Friday night or a Sunday morning where you're not sitting there worrying about your phone ringing and stuff like that.
Yeah, or every night.
Yeah, every single night, or away, you're gone, whatever it may be. So I think that's going to be good for a lot of people to listen to and to hear and kind of get an understanding, especially being here for a couple of years now. There's people that think, and it's tough because I'm not talking bad about any clients, or I'm not talking bad about anybody, but there's a certain type of person that thinks when they need something, they need it right now, right this very second, and they will be rude. They will be whatever they need to get it done. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to do it because you feel bad for that horse.
Right.
What people don't realize is the toll that takes on you and all the other veterinarians. And so that's going to be something that I'm looking forward to people to hear coming up soon.
Yeah, so I dug deep in the whole suicide realm of professionals. I mean, it's high in human medicine and dentistry too. And my wife, who stays at home with our youngest kid now, she's a dental hygienist, and it's real similar. I mean, horses obviously can't call me and be like, "Hey, I'm hurt." And then where she worked, it's similar with kids. So I mean, kids obviously can't call the dentist, but it's similar with that, because you feel, even though the people may not, the owners or parents in that situation may not be true clients or going to pay the bill, but you feel terrible for the kid or the horse. And that's a similar situation. And I'd say that's why the suicide rate's so high in dentists. I didn't dive too deep in that, but a lot of the episode talks about too is, or what I'm going to talk about in the episode is, which everybody with horses has probably felt this, unless you're living somewhere like, Texas or Florida, where there's tons of equine vets. There is a huge shortage of us equine vets. And we can only do so much as humans. So I'm going to break down a lot of the numbers on vets, whether new vets, old vets, job satisfactions, and like the toll that takes. And then we're going to talk about the suicide in the profession, and also like what horse owners can do to help with that and ensure that they have a vet when they need them. Because there's a saying in my head, I forgot where I read it. I didn't come up with this, but I think it was one of the Facebook groups I'm in, where somebody in a similar situation to me, the only vet, and just drained from the emergencies and everything. But somebody left a comment on there that says, just because somebody needs a vet doesn't mean it has to be you. And that's very true. Now, our good clients, the people that support us all year, I will do everything possible to be there right when they need me. But sometimes it isn't. But I also call them good clients because they're also understanding of that too. But, well, like the lady that brought that last horse today, we had the conversation where she got him, and they castrated the horse themselves. They don't believe in vaccinations, and they made some rude comment about vets to her, basically. And my comment back to her is like, yeah, they don't like vets until they really need one. And those are the people that will not support us through the year. Obviously, they're not going to support us with their castrations if they're doing it themselves, that poor horse. But then they expect us to drop at the drop of a hat on a Saturday night to go see a colic for them, or squeeze into Coggins because they sold a horse that we've never seen before. And that's what's tough with some of this stuff. And I say this is a hill I'll die on. We have some of the best clients, and John can vouch for that.
Yeah, easily.
We have awesome clients. So
there's any number of clients you could pull 20 out of a hat that would do anything for any of us that work here at any second. And it doesn't have to be horse related. It can be anything related to anything. They will do absolutely anything for you, and we'd do the same.
It's true. And I feel that way about them too. Like if they called about something else, like, I mean, obviously we're professionals and we're doing this for the horse, but I mean, we become friends with a lot of these clients. I mean, they're our friends. So, I mean, we take care of them. It's a small town. It's a small world. And that's just how it is. But and we had this conversation the other day with one. Speaking of AI, somebody called and wanted us to AI their horse. And I like reproduction. I like breeding horses. I like the baby stuff. But as busy as we are with our routine stuff, we do a lot of dentistry and sports medicine. Our schedule, I mean, we're booked out for weeks. With the breeding, it's very hard to schedule because all of a sudden you might get a call Sunday night, hey, my mare's in, I got to have her checked this time tomorrow to order semen. And it may or may not work out. So I've learned that the hard way the past few years, that I've got to limit myself to take care of the people that take care of us. So people that don't, I mean, there's some vet clinics that just quit doing AI or artificial insemination because of that. So we had this conversation with someone a while back, and I just told Hannah to tell them, like, we're not taking any more mares. Like, our books are full. Mm-hmm. But they didn't like that answer. So they were wanting to know how many mares we have, this and that. And I finally just called them back myself. I was like, look, we're not even really taking new patients right now, new clients, because I want to treat the ones we have good. Like, I don't want to be caught breeding your horse at this time and somebody that uses us all the time have an emergency that I can't get away from. And they were flabbergasted that they weren't considered clients, even though this is 2025?
Yeah.
So all of 2024, they didn't bring us anything. The year before, they brought us one horse. They didn't make an appointment. They just showed up with a sick horse that they had a dentist work on 2 weeks before and caused some trauma, and that was the whole thing of it. And that's why the horse ended up in that shape. So, I mean, no, you're not clients. We're not an emergency room. We are a clinic. We do emergencies for our clients, but I mean, and she just flat out asked, so if we had an emergency, are we not going to be able to bring it to you? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't know, because I'm going to take care of our clients before anybody else. And I think the majority of clinics, besides those that are very large and taking every phone call, and they can balance that personal life and work where somebody's not on call 24/7. I mean, you can do that, but with me, by myself, you can't do it. It takes a toll on me, it takes a toll on my wife, it takes a toll on my kids, and we charge an emergency fee. Sometimes I'm a little generous and zero that out, especially when they show up with a bottle of bourbon on a Sunday afternoon, which happens. But I mean, if people say anything about charge an emergency fee, I'm like, well, then come to my house when I got 2 little girls on my leg crying because this is the only time I can play with them, but I got to go see a horse. And when they get older, they're going to come down here and help me, and it's going to be a little bit easier. But
yeah,
right now it's tough. I mean, and just if we plan something like going to the movies or going out to dinner or anything, I mean, it's always in the back of my mind. And this weekend, John and I are leaving. Luckily, my dad's going to be here. I'll triage the phone calls and send him what's appropriate. I'll make sure he has help. So our clients will be covered. But I mean, that's the reality of it. And there is other vets There's some that are close that may not have the equipment or ability that we do, but there's universities. The sad thing is, and there's referral hospitals. The sad thing is the closest universities 3 hours away. The closest like full coverage hospital that has the ability to cut colics and keep horses is Mid Rivers over in St. Louis, which, what, 2.5,
3 hours,
depending on
so.
traffic
Mhm.
in St. Louis, and there's Lexington up the road. So if you got a horse and you want to get them through an emergency, you got to have an ability to transport them, and you got to have the budget too. We called one for a colic last week or 2 weeks ago, and it was a $3,500 deposit, which goes towards the medical bill. But I mean, you got to have, and they quoted 10 to 15,000 on the colic surgery.
Lenny,
That bone is loud. So, is there anything else you want to talk about, John?
no, I think that pretty well covers it today. I think, touching on that last subject of people needing to understand the difference between, a regular veterinary clinic and a hospital, an emergency hospital, and a university. I think there's a lot of things in the veterinary world that people just don't think about at all because they've never had to think about it until it's 1 o'clock in the morning and their horse is down and they call our clinic when they're not a client and we have one vet and you're already at a client's house. They might
Or
not even
sleep.
get a phone call. Yeah, or trying to sleep.
And that, I've taught myself this over the past few years of doing this solo. Like, if it's the middle of the night, it's also like I have the obligation to the people that have appointments the next day too. And if I'm up all night working, I'm not going to be on my best game the next day.
No, if we got a 9 o'clock lameness where it's just an absolute mystery and we know it's going to take 4 hours and you've had no sleep, that's just going to make it worse.
Yeah, and it's hard, and then it compounds for the next day. And that
Mhm.
night, I might get another call. And I don't mind emergencies. I know they happen. Most of us all work, and you get home and you find stuff.
Yeah, and it is part of the job.
It is.
It's just part of it. You know it going into it. Like,
Yeah.
we're not sitting here saying don't let your horse have an emergency ever again or call your vet. That's not what we're saying.
It happens.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that drives me insane is when they wait.
Yeah. Well, they colicked yesterday at 10 o'clock and we walked him for 12 hours and we put
Yeah.
him on the trailer and he's still not doing very good.
Yeah,
You
they
think you could look at him?
They call you at midnight. Or some of them will call at like 5 or 6. My horse is a little colicky, just a heads up. Like, we need to bring it in. Well, I don't know if I want to bring it in, but I might have to call you later. Like, well, I might be asleep later because I have to work the next day.
Uh-huh.
But anyways, I think we've rambled on enough.
Yeah, I think that's good.
So we are in the next few weeks. Once I get all the research done, it's going to be a long podcast. There's going to be a lot of numbers, but it is going to be pretty eye-opening to a lot of maybe even other vets and horse owners about the current state of veterinary medicine, mainly equine, and also the suicide stuff. Because I don't know how many times I get on Facebook. It seems like at least once a month somebody's sharing something of somebody. It was too much for them. And we all go into this profession because we want to help. I don't care what anybody says. We don't do it for the money. But it takes its toll. So stay tuned for that episode. And we're working on some other ones too. And I guess we'll leave it at that. So until next time, take care of your horses and yourself.
Veterinary surgeon or start to come quick. Draw the syringe and give it a flick. Bring your little black bag with the medicines in. Bring the trank and the crank and the penicillin.